When I was little, I read the story of the little gingerbread man. I read that he was mischievous and fresh, and that he ran away with the whole village chasing him. In the story I read, he tricked everyone until he met up with a fox who ate him up. I thought that was too harsh, and even though he was just a cookie, he walked and talked and sang songs. I could picture myself doing something equally as bad as the gingerbread boy, and that put me on his side. When I illustrated my version of the story, I ended it in another way. Maddie bakes a gingerbread house behind the scenes, and the gingerbread baby, as I called him, finds it the perfect hideaway. When I drew my pictures, I made lots of gingerbread men. When they were hot out of the oven, I bent their arms and legs and turned their heads as if they could move. As they cooled, they stayed in that position. All the gingerbread babies stayed on my art desk in a basket, smelling delicious while I worked on the illustrations. That is, until a mouse started visiting at night. I'd like to draw a gingerbread baby for you. Follow along. I've got my paper here, and I'm going to start with a big circle that is going to be the gingerbread baby's head. And when I get to the very bottom where his neck would be, I'm going to leave a little space because I've got a marker here rather than a pencil, and I can't erase it. And he has a little tip on the top of his head, which I made on my illustration because I wanted him to look like he was my gingerbread baby, not someone else's. And I've got one arm down, and I'm putting the other arm up because I want him to look like he's alive. And normally, when you have a cookie made from a cookie cutter, everything is all very stiff. And so I wanted to make him look a little different. And that gives you a lot of leeway when you're drawing, because if you make a little mistake, it won't matter. It will just look like he's a cookie that is made out of dough. I'm leaving a space here because I'm going to put a little marshmallow on each foot, which is white in the book compared to his beautiful gingery color. There's his marshmallow on each leg. And he's got kind of a chubby little body, and then it almost looks like he has pajamas or something on because he doesn't have long legs. They're kind of short little legs. Now the next thing I'm going to work on is his face. And I'm going to start by making two little eyes, and they're raisins. So I'm making circles, but they're kind of wiggly, and I'm going to color in those dark brown. And then he's got kind of a big nose, which is one of those red hots. And then he's smiling in kind of a mischievous way. And I've made that smile by making a regular smile that you would make a very simple one, and then underneath it shows his mouth is open as if he's talking. And I think I'll make his eyebrows kind of going down because he looks a little mischievous. Now, this is a good chance to use your skills at making your character come alive. And I've drawn three little heads up here. And I'm going to make them pretty much the same, except for I'm just going to change the eyebrows. And that just shows you how much a few lines can change your artwork. And experiment with all those different faces, because you want your character to have lots of emotions, because you want to imagine the story that's going on behind the scenes. So they're all going to have the same nose and the same mouth. There's that smile with a little bit underneath showing as if he's just about to speak. And then here's his little raisin eyes that you can use like a wiggly line on. They're all looking a little bit the same. That's what I want. But now this one, I'm going to be making his expression look like he's exasperated. So his eyebrows go straight up. This one, he's going to look like he's angry. So his eyebrows are going to tilt downwards. And then this last one, I'm going to make look crazed. So his eyebrows are way up here, but I'm going to be the only one with pupils in it. I'll put the pupils right in the middle as if he's opening his eyes up wide and he's kind of crazed. I think it's time to color him in, although I have to stop for a minute and make the little peppermint candies going down his front, because those will remain white, and that's going to be something when I paint on the gingery color that I want to leave white. And he'll have little stripes on those. And I'm making those stripes a little curved so they look like they're going around that shape. And they can go in different directions. that's up to you. And if you want it to look like peppermint, you could use red and white, or red and white and green, or you could use your imagination and do something completely different. So these are my watercolors that I use. And I'm taking brown and mixing it with orange to get that gingery color. And if it's too dark, I might add a little bit of yellow, but right now it's looking just right. And here I'm going to start on the tip, and this will be kind of be doing it the quick way. And the color of that gingerbread, of course, is made by the molasses, which is one of the ingredients, and then all those spices, ginger and cloves and cinnamon, which make a gingerbread cookie smell so good. Now the paint's not going on totally evenly, but I don't care because the surface of the dough is a little uneven too. And I could be doing the same technique with markers or colored pencils or crayons. There's his head. I'm mixing a little bit more of paint, brown and orange. And this will be the hard part because I have to go around those white buttons. And when I'm done with the coloring him in, I will be making some texture on that. So that's why I'm not too worried if all the paintings, the strokes of my brush, if they look a little bit crude and not smooth. Now if I wanted to look totally smooth, then I would put a wash on first, and I would do it very quickly. I'd prepare a great large quantity of this color and put it on top of the paper that would already be wet, and that would help it look a little smoother. But that's not my idea about what I want to do now. I don't mind that rough look. It's kind of taking a long time to do. Need a little bit more water. I never worked with watercolors until I got to be an adult because they are very difficult to control. The colors sometimes blend into each other. And I use a technique called a dry brush stroke where I don't use very much water. And that's not what I'm doing now because I would do that with my illustrations. And I know I've said this before, but it takes an hour to do an inch when I'm working on my illustrations for my book. So it's a little bit of a different process. I'm paying much more attention to detail. And right now I'm just blocking those colors in because I want you to get going on your drawings, and I'm hoping that you are painting right along with me. That would be a nice thought. There, he's starting to look like a gingerbread baby, all right. I would say one of the biggest challenges when I made this book was sitting in my art studio and smelling all that delicious gingerbread every day. So it wasn't until that mouse crept in that I finally got tossed all those gingerbread babies because they all had little chew marks in them. Okay, so there's his gingerbread color. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to texture it a little bit. And I'm making a little bit of a darker shade. And I'm just going to make a few little dots because it kind of shows the texture. And while I'm doing this, I'm taking some time to just even out those colors a little bit. And you know, when you're making cookies, you make the cookie, you let it cool, and then you put all that nice frosting on. But I couldn't do that in this book because he was going to jump right out of the oven and start running away and starting his teasing. He gets on the cooking bowl and all of that. So I couldn't put the white frosting on. He would just have time to have the marshmallows on his feet and the peppermints going down his front. So there's a little bit of texture. And you'd have lots of time to do this with your markers or crayons. He'll really look like he's made of cookie material. And now this is going to be quite fun because this is really going to give him more of a shape. I'm going to put a little shading on him. I'm using the same color, that ginger color, but I'm putting a little bit of, you could use black. I'm using blue. It's a little darker to make him look like he has depth that he's not flat. And every place under where the cookie is in shadow, I'm making that darker color. And maybe under that little red hot little candy, cinnamon candy, I'm putting a shadow under that because that would be sticking out. And then his mouth, and I can define his eyebrows a little bit. But then under his mitten-like hand, under his arm, and under his leg here. It wouldn't be there, it would be under here. So it's everything that's on under and to the right. I'm going to make it as if it's in shadow. And that gives him a little bit of a, whoops, that looks like a mustache. I'm just going to blend that in a little bit. And then underneath those peppermints, I'll put a little bit of a shadow too. And see, it makes him look a little bit rounder, as if he could be a cookie. Well, he looks okay. And now for the peppermints, and I'm taking like a bluish gray because I'm going to do a little circle around each one to make them look like they're sticking up, that they're round circles that are sticking up. And the same with those marshmallows on his feet, because they're not flat circles, they're round. And then here's a little trick that all watercolorists know. I've just got water on my brush now, and I'm just going to blend that in a little bit just with plain water. Now, let's put in his eyes next. I'm using dark brown and a little bit of blue in it, but if you wanted to use black, you could, to make that brown the color of a raisin. Actually, a raisin has a little bit of red in it, so I'm going to put a little bit of red in there, too. And there's his raisin-like eyes, and I'm leaving a little teeny white space because raisins are kind of wrinkled up, and that would catch the light. So there's a few little white spaces there. Now, when I've got this brown out, maybe I'll do a little bit more in his mouth right there. Ooh, there he is. And now for some fun, make that candy cinnamon little red hot, that's what they're called. So I'm using my darker red on this. And I'm going to color them all in, but I'm leaving a little teeny white space right at the top because that's the sparkle, because it's a shiny, a cinnamon candy is shiny. And there's one at the bottom. Now I'm going to use that technique again and just use plain water, and I'm going to take a little paint off in the middle. And that makes it look like more realistic, I think. Work on that a little bit more. Because cinnamon candy is perfectly round. There he is. There's a little nose for him. And now I'm going to use my red now, again, for his peppermints. So then, a lot of times those peppermints have one thick stripe and one thin stripe. So I'm going to do the thick stripes first. And I think in the book I made them look like pinwheels, which is another kind of candy. I just went to the grocery store and looked at all the different kinds of candy that was there, and then bought it, brought it home to my art studio, and decided which would look best for my picture. I wanted that bright, eye-catching red. And there he is. But I wanted him to look fairly traditional, too. So I think, is he done? I think he is. Let's see, one last thing I could do is I do have, I think I'll take a little bit of yellow and mix it in with a red. And this would make an orange. Yellow and red make orange. And just give him a little bit more color in there. I'm mixing several different colors because that's the way a cookie would look in my mind. And that's a really dry brush there. It gives that kind of scrubby texture. And then this is a little darker. I'm just going to do around the raisin eyes. And there he is. Ooh, do we need little cheeks? Maybe I'll take a little bit of red. And I'm putting a lot of water in the red, so it looks kind of pinkish. And he has two little cheeks there. Makes him look like he's been running outside. And we all know that that gingerbread baby is doing a lot of running outside. And just like when you go outside and run around and your cheeks get kind of flushed and pink, same with the gingerbread baby. That's a little detail that makes him look like he's alive, which is the whole point of the book, the cookie that comes alive. Well, good luck with your drawings. Make sure that you do lots of different things on yours so you really make it your own. There can be candy canes, peppermints, there can be cinnamon hots, all kinds of candy that you can add to yours, plus frosting. Good luck.